I'm not the house of cards that falls down easily. I'm strong enough to handle what you throw at me.
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I'm your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Just what are we going to discuss? The intimacy that is mental health. Let's continue to make it as comfortable as discussing brain health or heart health. This show has been on the air for several years and we have amazing co-hosts. And then we created a network of podcasters on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com, a place where every possible facet of mental well-being can be talked about openly. My show, after several hundred interviews, the format is this: intimate, deep, funny, touching, sometimes uncomfortable, but always vulnerable conversations with interesting people. The goal is to have you, our listening family, many of you who have become my good friends, feel as though you are listening in on private conversations. Thank you for tuning in and becoming part of this amazing journey with me, and now with our network of podcasters. Just knowing this podcast might be helping any of you realize you are not alone on this journey called being a human being makes doing this podcast worth every second.
After all we promised, we'd be cordial.
Hey everyone, Kristin Sunanta Walker here, and I have some amazing guests, one that you know very, very well, Dr. Kristina Hallett. Hi, Kristina.
Hi, so happy to talk with you.
And we also have Jeevers, which, you know, you guys need to know that name for him, but he is the founder and formulator for Pros, which is a wonderful CBD oil company, but he's made many, many other formulations, but he's here with us too. Hi, Jeevers.
Hey, what's up, girls? Excited to be here.
Woo!
Yeah.
I thought, you know, right now with everything that's going on, I want to connect with two of the most positive people I've ever known in my entire life and do a show with them. So that is the pretense for this show.
Pretense or
Joy,
premise?
all about happiness.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Please correct my grammar if I'm not using it properly, but I just thought I need to have these two people on.
Exactly, because it's not pretend. This is real life.
Yeah, you're right. This is not pretend. This is real life. This is serious stuff. And there's so much going on. So you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to do like a little snippet from each of us of some of the transformation that has started to happen in your lives because of what's going on. So I'll start with me very quickly. I've had a mass healing with my mother, which is amazing for me. I've had a mass healing with my son, also amazing. I've decided that my love of being an off-grid person is a good thing to do, and I'm not going to be ashamed of that. I'm going to actually be an off-grid person, so I'm going to build that tiny house that I've always wanted, and I'm going to filter my rainwater and live on solar power and do all that stuff that sounds cuckoo-kajou to many people in society, but I'm doing it. And I've had just a lot of people connecting in a way that they've never connected before, and I'm a really connected person, so that's pretty amazing. So that's some of the stuff that's kind of going on with me. So now I pass it to you, Kristina.
Good question. So I'm thinking about this really as a time of innovation. And the other day I got this little bracelet that says fortune favors the bold, and not thinking so much about fortune in terms of monetary fortune, but in terms of resilience and well-being and sort of living our best life. So from a practical perspective, that's really my mindset, and where I'm implementing that is, for example, I've moved some of my clients to telemental health, telebehavioral health. So really checking out new technologies, new ways of being, and really trying to focus on how do we maintain and grow the connections between people. And then I also, both of you know, actually, I just finished creating and I just kept going back and back and back because I wanted to add more and more and more. I'm like, well, so this is a time for giving, right? So I created a little online mini course on resilience. And I'm like, yes, because that's a thing I can do that challenges me, but also gives to others. So again, it was, what's a new platform, new ways of doing things. So those are some of the sort of specific changes. And then the other thing I've just been thinking about a lot is all of the good practices that technically we all want to follow, but we fall out of the habit of. And as simple as don't touch your face. I'm like, oh yeah, that's
Right.
good advice. You probably shouldn't do that. So I'm thinking a lot about those kinds of things. Or I went to Costco a week ago and someone who worked at Costco was meeting everyone at the door and they were using a wipe, the employee, to wipe down the handle of the carriage. And I thought, oh, I love that. So it's an opportunity for a big smile and a thank you. So I'm really thinking a lot about things that we've gotten out of the practice of doing that we can bring in that just help us live a healthier life overall.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we don't think about until now how many people have touched this cart.
Right. And instead of freaking out about it, think, oh, so it's interesting the ways in which our lives are so interconnected that we don't know. So we can both acknowledge that and take good, safe behavior.
Exactly. And I think about Jeevers with the products that you've created. I mean, I am squirting that ashwagandha in my mouth before I go to bed like you would not believe.
Yeah.
So how about you? How are you handling, all of what's going on?
Well, yeah, both of you made some really great points about just really understanding this amazing, beautiful thing called community. Okay. Right. And it's this is bringing all of us, even when we talk about social distancing, it's actually bringing us a whole lot closer because we're taking care of each other, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things, obviously, right now, everyone, I completely understand. There's a percentage out there is they're freaked out. And, there's a lot of reasons to feel a little bit uncertain, not freaked out, but just uncertain because there are a lot of variables as far as what COVID-19 or this virus can affect, who can it affect, what are the long-term effects, all that sort of stuff. But the thing is that from my perspective, which is health, what I've realized the last few days is the awesome but incredible responsibility that we all have as healthcare educators and experts to go out there and speak the truth. Because there's a lot of charlatans out there. There's a lot of people who are providing misinformation, right?
Yeah.
And it's upon us to not worry, not focus on our business necessarily, or focus on what we have, but to get out there and talk about things that are real, that are really helpful from credible sources. So it's like I'm bringing all my friends and contacts together and say, listen, guys, it isn't about your company. It isn't about your products. It isn't about your ingredients. It's about going out there and sharing this great body of research that we've been able to put together over the decades, if you will, to say, hey, this is what you should be doing, and this is how you should be doing. So I think that's one thing. And I think the second thing is what Dr. Hallett was talking about is that, a lot of the things that are the most powerful for you are the things that are the most powerful to bring yourself into a state of certainty and comfort and joy, if you will. Okay, right? And what I mean by that is that getting great sleep, having great personal connections and positive emotion, hydrating, eating good food, staying away from the things that you knew that you should stay away from, but you didn't have a reason to really stay away from it, right?
Right.
Now there's a real reason to stay away from everything from cigarettes to sugar and carbohydrates, because these are incredibly risky things for certain individuals and for all of us anyways. And so lastly, hopefully what I feel that this is going to do is we're going to come out of this with a greater appreciation of what we should be doing on the prevention side, on body, mind, and soul, if you will,
Agreed.
Absolutely. And can I just throw in that as you're talking about connections and coming closer together, it reminds me of the fact that just the other day, Jeevers, I sent you a picture of my cauliflower steak, as in not a steak made of cauliflower, and you sent me a picture back of the veggies that were in your shopping cart, right? So there's this connection that helps us motivate each other and keep each other going forward.
That's exactly
Absolutely.
right.
And we can take a trail. Like I look at, and a lot of people, we don't have time. There's so much, everything's going so fast. Well, guess what? We got a lot of time now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we got a lot of time. We got a lot of time to sit with our feelings, which we run from with consumerism. We got a lot of time for a lot of stuff right now. And it's made me, and me being, I'm like, oh, socially isolate. Hell, I got no problem with that,
Yeah. So, there's something for you to think about with that one, babe.
Yeah. Totally. And I mean, I'm like, this is great. This is freaking awesome. This is not a bad thing.
No.
This is a wonderful thing. I mean, I've got the manual. So in that way, it's fantastic. But what's interesting too, is to look at what we've done in our lives and see, oh, there's a path. There's a road that has been paved that has taken me to where I am today. Why on earth did I end up in Nowheresville, Virginia, on an organic farm for 18 months living in a tiny home? Well, now I see the value of growing your own food.
Exactly.
And guess what? I'm going to take that with me where I am now. It's just, when we have this time to sit and reflect, which technology, seduces us away from that. And so many things seduce us away from that. But boy, are we going to get a lot of time to sit and reflect. And when we can, sit and reflect and do that, we can re-examine how we're living our lives and what we can do to really have a more peaceful experience of this human experience, which is very hard.
Yeah.
I think that this is such a great opportunity for that. And I want to throw out sort of a counterpoint to reflection, not really a counterpoint, but maybe a caution. Like, absolutely, I am all in for self-reflection for everybody. I think that's fabulous. But I see a lot of people who, when they start to do that, they get into sort of that Monday morning quarterbacking and critiquing. And so I guess, right, my piece to that is, look at where you've had the solutions, the growth, the learning. That's fabulous. And don't fall into that easy trap of, oh, well, if I had only done X at thus and such a time, then blah,
Right.
blah, blah, right? I say to all the time, I'm like, look, you're doing the best you can with what you have in that moment. And you can't be responsible for not knowing what you didn't know, because you were only doing the best you could with what you had in that moment.
See, and I think that's really key, because, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's not how the world markets to us.
Right.
That's not right. It says, you're constantly seeing people doing other things and you're measuring yourself to them, right? And they're getting awarded because you are in competition, right? And it's like, I remember a while ago, I wrote in my journal, it's not about running as fast as everyone else. It's about, am I running as fast as I can?
Exactly.
Right. And I think I look at that every day and I think to myself, okay, am I truly running as fast as I can? Because if I'm not running as fast as I can, then I'm only doing a disservice to myself, right? because I get in trouble if I started looking at, am I running as fast as Dr. Hallett? Am I running as fast as Chris? Well, no, then
Right.
because there's a bunch of other things going on over there, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I hear that too. I had a couple of people come to me just before this whole coronavirus piece took off, and the way that it has. I had a couple of people come to me and they want to buy this network, and there's so much they're going to do with it, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And on one call, I got very insecure, like, oh man, those ideas are fantastic. I should have been doing this, and I should have been doing that. And I thought, okay, that doesn't make me feel good.
Right. No kidding.
I'm getting off this call.
That's it.
Yeah. And of course, there are things that could have been done differently, whatever, but we're still the only one out there. There's no other network like this. So I took it with a grain of salt, and I thought, well, okay, I will take the good from this conversation, and I will not compare. Like you were talking about, Jeevers, I'm not going to compare to, well, I should have done this and I should have done that, but I'm not going to do the comparison. And I'm going to say, from a spiritual perspective, everything has gone on exactly the way that that it has supposed to go on. And I'm going to rest in that, because doing anything else feels really damaging and futile to me. And I don't think that it helps. Like, everything gets thrown out the window when we're talking about what we're going through right now with this coronavirus. Like, everything gets thrown out the window when there's something like this going on. So in some ways, I think, okay, my sort of adopted peaceful way of sort of plowing through things as peacefully as I can, maybe that's been the good thing all along.
Yeah. You
never know.
I was just talking to someone today and saying one of the best strategies that we have, which is being highlighted now, but has always been true, is staying in the present moment. So, right, when we're in today and living in today, then we can let go of that criticism of the past, or the comparison or worry or anxiety connected to the future. Like, we are only in today. So, hey, we get to be in today.
Yeah, that's an amazing piece for me. Really learning to live in the moment. Like, is that not what the world is teaching us right now with what's going on? Living in the moment.
Here's another thing that is interesting. This is a very big psychological experience, or like event. It's like, on one hand, I hope that what people are doing too is being aware of what's happening out there and how people are behaving and why they're behaving that. Because remember, at the very end of the day, how you can learn and develop and grow is, you can harness your own knowledge, which is not an easy thing to do, okay, right? Or you can gather a bunch of experiences and be incredibly aware, and then put together knowledge based on that, right? Because it's all about, right? And so that's something. It's like whether it's the mass hysteria of people buying toilet paper, and then when you interview them, and this is a beautiful article somebody wrote, and they basically just went out there and started asking people why they were buying toilet paper, right? And they had like 12 people, and you should have heard their responses. Nobody knew why they were buying toilet paper.
Right.
They were just buying it because they thought that's what they should be doing, and that's what everybody else was doing. And they were creating things in their head that said, well, if I don't buy toilet paper, then what am I going to do?
Then I'm going to die.
Right.
Yeah. You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think I am so grateful that I have lived such an off-grid life, that I have lived where I slept on a cot outside, and toilet paper was a leaf in the tundra, and that I have lived in a tent, and I've lived in a palace, and I'm so grateful that I've had all these really wacky experiences that regular society would look at and go, what the hell is wrong with you, girl? Like, you can't just like live mainstream. Come on now. I'm so glad, because this kind of stuff doesn't freak me out. Like, it's like, I don't feel the need to go buy copious amounts of toilet paper. I'm like, well, I have tissue boxes and I have washcloths and a washer, luckily a washer that, can sanitize things. You know what I mean? Like, it sort of helps me put stuff into perspective, because I've lived such a wackadoodle life. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but you also have to say to yourself, you took time out of your day. You stood in line for 3 hours. You went and rushed and went to 4 stores for toilet paper. You didn't do that for vitamin. You didn't do that for fruits and vegetables.
Right.
You didn't do that for food. Like that's what you value. You went out there and you actually, that's what you got to look at in your life, is what are you really, in times of crisis like this, you'll realize just what you value and what you don't value.
Well, and that power, though, right, of social pressure, like, because I've heard so many people say, well, I didn't prepare. And like, what is everyone else doing to prepare? So you start hearing people are collecting toilet paper, and that person's like, oh, damn, I better go get some toilet paper.
Yes.
Right.
Right. Not even what they value, which I'm actually good with that. But I think that someone else is valuing this. So I don't want to be the one, right? We get so run by the shoulds of what we think that everyone else is doing.
Very true. I mean, Lisa Day, who, Kristina, I know you've talked to, she's wonderful. She had a show called The Book of Shoulds, written by they. I mean, so freaking true. It's like, I don't really... I'm so glad I've isolated a lot, because I don't really care. I'm watching a conference that was going to go on, and I understand the economic impact of them not doing a conference, hundreds of thousands of dollars that they have to deal with not having, when they're already on thin margins, being a mental health organization, from canceling this huge, 8,000 people descending upon a city, and they have to cancel and put it off to the next year. I can't. There's so many ripples of that. It's unreal. And
that's why it's
how
like,
can we remove that of that?
Yeah. And it's like, I think hopefully what's going to happen, and it's happened, is that people are coming together and saying, okay, man, that is really unfortunate, but we love what you do. We value who you are and what you're for. And so we're going to help support you in some way. You know what I mean? That's what we need to do as a community, is look at those types of places. It's like, hey man, as soon as this, I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, as soon as some of these bans come off as far as going to places, I'm going to go to them and I'm going to spend money. Okay.
Yes.
Right. And because that's what we should be thinking about,
Exactly.
Oh,
I will say, by the way, I did buy toilet paper because I have a mentality. I didn't buy like 20,000 rolls, but I like to know if I'm using this package, I have an extra. That's just me in my life. So I bought toilet paper, but what I cared more about was, you're going to love this, I have a couple supplements that I take, and I'm like, oh, I want to make sure I have those. Like, I extended my have a backup to my supplements.
We are not going to fault you for this. I want to be very clear. We will not fault you for this at all.
No, what is the daily oil that I take every day, Jeevers? What is that one called?
Yeah, so that one is called Shield, and Shield.
Yes.
It's funny that you mentioned about ashwagandha, but a lot of last week or whatever it was on Thursday. They noted what were the top natural nutrients to take to fight the influenza virus and to support the immune system under the attack.
I read it, but tell us.
Was that right? It was those 3 nutrients.
I know. Everyone else. Oh my God, I cannot live.
Yeah, reishi mushroom, ashwagandha, and then obviously the golden spice of all, turmeric. And so those were the 3 that I had actually put there in Shield. I didn't mean them. I wasn't focusing on it, formulating it for the influenza. But I later realized too that the flu virus is actually one of the most traumatic things that can happen to the immune system. So that's why when you kind of do some of this work, you realize, oh my gosh, those are the ingredients that have shown over 10,000 years to support the immune system, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm like, when I was unpacking, because listeners, you know, and I've said this on other shows, like I moved to a new place, a farm, and so I can have my horse on the same property as me. And it's a wonderful thing, but I'm doing it right in the midst of all this other stuff that's going on. And I could not find my shield. And I was like, what? I can't do it. What is going on? I'm looking through boxes, and I finally found it. And I used the one that you use at night, which is, what's the one that you use at night called?
That one is called Nods.
Okay. So I found it, and I'm using it every day. And I mean, I feel like, okay, I'm doing the best that I can to protect myself, you know, with what's going on, and the fact that I still do have to go to the grocery store, even though now I do the order online and they deliver it to my car. So I'm doing the least, you know, human to human contact as possible. I have to go get horse feed at Tractor Supply. So, but they will come and they will stick it in your trunk if you don't have to get out of your car, you know, so I'm doing all those things. But I also feel like, okay, every time I squirt something in my mouth from Pros and I'm, you know, putting the stuff on my arm that you guys have, I'm like, okay, this is, you know, I'm not doing a commercial here. I'm literally saying, I really feel like, okay, this is me putting a protective barrier around that. If I get this, it's not you know, it's going to protect me from getting it. That's not reality in any way. It's more like, for me, it's more, if I get this, I'll combat it easier because I have these protections in place. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the essence of all of the physiological things that you're doing, or psychological things that you're doing, if you will, is that all, I mean, here's what I think about, okay, right? Listen, there's no way that you are going to live a life without any stress, any trauma, any hardship,
Right.
any struggle, any blah, blah. And if you are, then you know what? You must be not doing anything. Because
Exactly.
You are
right?
Buddha on a mountain and you don't have any contact with anything but goats. Like that's your life. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I mean, you must not be challenging yourself in any way or any fashion, taking risks and such, which is a really boring life. And that's unfortunate. But if you are, you will face those hardships. Now, how have you prepared yourself, if you will? And you have that you'll be able to get through that struggle. So on the nutritional, obviously, Dr. Hallett can speak really well, obviously on the mindset and such, you know, but on the nutrition end, it's like, that's why I do all this sort of stuff. The reason why I do, you know, somebody asked me the other day, gosh, Steve, you know, are you worried about what's happening out there? I'm like, no. And the reason why I'm not isn't because I'm oblivious. It's because, listen, I've tried to do everything that I possibly could, you know, that as fast as I could run, okay, if you will, for many years. And now this is the net, and it's going to do what it's going to do. And I'm not going to be like, hey, listen, you know what? Unfortunately, I knew more, I could have done more, but I didn't do it.
Right.
Well, you know, exactly. And what I would say is it's this idea of everything that we're talking about is always true, right? Like eating fruits and vegetables, right? Using Pros products or other supplements, exercising, breathing, being out in nature. Those are 100%
Breathing.
true. Right.
Very important. Breathing.
20 years ago, those were good things for which some of those were not available. But generally speaking, that lifestyle 20 years ago and 20 minutes ago hasn't changed. Making sure that you are as physically healthy as you can be, obviously physically increases the ability of your immune system, but it absolutely increases your resilience from an emotional wellness perspective, right? So they go hand in hand all the time. That's why you guys are my besties, because I'm like, wow, we've got all the stuff here that totally makes the difference no matter what's going on.
Yes.
Let me bring the conversation to this, and we'll kind of close with this conversation. But being the optimist that we three are, and I don't know each of your journeys, but I know for me, becoming an optimist was a choice that took a lot of hard work. Because we don't have optimists in my family, and there are generations of no optimists in my family. So for me to get to the point where I am today, where I actually pivot towards optimism instead of pessimism is, oh my God, that's like I climb Mount Olympus. So how do we contend with a world that goes, oh, you're magical thinking, you're ridiculous, you're whatever, you know how that goes. So I'm going to take that to you first, Kristina. How do you go with that?
I love this. What a good concept. So all my life, I have been, well, one piece is different, but from early on, I was the kind of person that was always smiling and that people would say was a Pollyanna. And at the same time, I was a person who, if you said to me, why don't you try some new thing, right? Like, and this isn't from when I was young, but earlier in my career, I remember very clearly someone saying to me, why don't you open your own practice? It's the clearest example. And in my head, I'm like, all of the reasons that I couldn't and it wouldn't work immediately, like that's my brain. So it didn't matter whether I was 6 years old and you said, why don't you try running down the street? Or, 26 years old and someone says, why don't you do this? My brain immediately gives a list of why it won't work, what the problems are, et cetera. So I have always had this sort of dichotomy between being someone who's positive and believes in the best of people, but also at the same time sees immediately all of the problems and the difficulties and can sort of project out, not in a catastrophizing way, but in a like identify the obstacles kind of way. And therein lies what I did, because what I learned to do by practicing was to maintain, I am never going to stop by choice. I will never stop believing in hope or the general goodness of people. I believe that all humans are worthy. They take actions that I may really think are not okay, but they're worthy of love, care, and compassion. And that's a value of mine. So it's not only a belief, but a value. So I'm not giving that up. On the other hand, the work for me was to say, how can I use my basically innate negativity to look at this list and pull the judgment out and say, so this is a growth tool, right? I can work around that instead of presuming it won't work, because instead saying, oh, here are the obstacles. What can I do to solve this?
Oh, that's lovely. That is lovely. I mean, I can relate to that totally.
I will also tell you that I jokingly say all the time, which I'm trying not to, because it's not, like, if you don't know me, it's sort of really bad, but like something will happen. I'll be like, oh my God, I hate people. I hate people. And like, it's like a horrible thing to say, because I clearly don't hate people. In fact, I love people and I'm believing in the best. What I really mean is, I'm disappointed that someone, is taking an action that's inconsiderate or harmful to others. So now my current practice, particularly now, is to stop saying I hate people. And when I want to say that, to think, how can I take a breath and have some compassion for where they're at, even when I don't agree?
Oh, that's big. Oh my God. Listeners, take a breath on that one. That's something that needs to be a seed.
Well, and let's be clear, there's a lot I don't agree with. Like I'm not Empress of the world yet, so there's a lot of stuff that I disagree with.
Oh God, absolutely. Jeevers, how about you?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I'm a little bit more like Dr. Hallett here listen, guys, I mean, I'm not an optimist, but I'm not a pessimist either. I'm just a ist, I guess, right? Is that
You're a momentist.
I'm a momentist,
Momentist,
right? And
I like it.
Man, I get it. It's tough to be able to always, as my dad says, create or to communicate or to love with the most loving part of your heart, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy. And so my thing though is that here's maybe this answers the question a little bit or whatever. Here's what I always come back to is that I've identified really clearly who I am and what I stand for and what I want me to be for me. So I want to be supportive. I want to be loving. I want to be helpful. I want to be compassionate. I want to be all that sort of stuff. I want to be, joyful, like I said. And so therefore I don't let anyone kind of disturb that energy. Okay. Right now I'm going to have situations in which all of a sudden that energy can kind of, somebody may take it or to diverge it or whatever, but I won't let anyone touch the source. You know what I mean? Right. And I think that's the essence of all of this for me is that, listen, running a business, having employees, having vendors and clients and stuff, sometimes you were just like, oh my gosh, this is like, why, you know what I mean? Right. And, but it's also saying, listen, is that, I want to make sure that, who I am at the very end of the day, like stays true. Okay. Right. And then all of these little incidences that happen is just, that's what they are. They're just little incidences, right. And they don't define what my world is like. And so anyways, I know you're saying, hey, listen, how do you identify yourself and how do you get through it? My thing is, listen, you know what? I'm not going to be the guy that, like Dr. Hallett says, hey man, it's all going to work out great. It's going to be fantastic. Oh, I know it. It's going to be great. I'm saying, hey, listen, it's going to be a struggle. I'm ready for the struggle. Yeah. I'm going to work my butt off. I know that I'm not the only one that is going to be able to control any situation. It's the universe. And all I can do is just work my butt off, and the universe is going to align when the universe is going to align for me,
Yeah.
Totally got it from both of you. And so glad and grateful, first of all, that I even know you. I mean, how grateful am I that I even know you? Because I will tell you this, how we are. Like, we're these little spark plugs, actually big spark plugs that, run around in society, and people who are temporarily lost don't think that they have their own spark plug, tend to glob on to our energy. And that can be kind of draining. And so I'm really grateful that I have like this entire network of a bunch of spark plugs, because I'm noticing the more that what's going on in the world that's going on now, the more I have people like, I really need to be around you. And they'll even say, like, outright, because everybody's freaked out, so they're not like watching what they say. They'll say, I'm depressed, and the only thing that gives me light is when I'm around you. And I'm like, oh boy, you need to learn how to spark that for yourself.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because I am not an unlimited battery here. I have to spark for myself and a lot of other people too. So I think it's an interesting paradigm that we're in to examine this when you're a spark plug, out there in the world like you both are, and I am too, to figure out how do we conserve our energy for us and also continue to be a spark plug for others, and do it in a way that is meaningful, that is not damaging, that doesn't diminish what we can do for ourselves. Because if we run down that battery, we got nothing left to give to anybody else.
So
So
Isn't it
it's an interesting
always
time.
about
Yeah.
self-care, right? Like
Yes.
our very first conversation ever, you and I, right? So it's
Yep.
about boundaries, limits, taking care of yourself so you can be in connection and community with others.
Absolutely. And never more than now are we learning how vital and important that is and how to really hone that in so that we can do what we do. So I'm grateful that we have this amazing network and the people that we have on it that are such givers. And I'm grateful that we have products that we can use from you, Jeevers, that really help us continue that self-care so that we have more to give. And I'm really grateful that we can, do a show impromptu and say, okay, this is how we're handling what's going on. 3 really positive people.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the opportunity to do this.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. I
Well,
mean, this network and what you've created is an opportunity for this type of information and support and love and such to be distributed. And at the very end of the day, that is the most important thing, because you can have all of this great stuff that just sits in an office, sits in a person, sits on a shelf. But if you didn't create this, it wouldn't be out,
Well, thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you. It helps with the mission. Yeah, I want those voices out there. I want as many people talking as possible about what they're going through. And listeners, I'm going to have my friend Dr. Paolo Molina, who's a psychotherapist in Italy, right in the heart of Florence. He's going to come on and talk about what he's experiencing there. And we'll just, that's the thing. We just need to hear these friendly voices where we know these people. Dr. Kristina Hallett, you've heard her shows. I cannot tell you, listeners, this woman literally could, just with her energy alone, could light an entire planet with what she does. I mean, it's incredible, like how many shows she pumps out and how enthusiastic she is. And it's amazing to me. She's like the prime example of who I want as a podcaster.
Oh, thank you. There's nothing better than being part of this network and all of the amazing people I've gotten to meet. You two are sort of obviously in my super faves, but again, you started this by talking about community and connection. And so I'm just underscoring that again, because while the network is clearly a community that's based on connections, it's also allowing us to create these new relationships and new connections with
people. Communities outside of this community. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, how much connection can we have? I mean, that's what we need. And we have listeners that are tuning in from every continent on this planet. That's the amazing thing. So, Jeevers, I welcome you into it. I'm so glad you want to be a part of it. Thank you for coming on to do a show. And listeners, this is not like buy his products because it's the new blah, blah, blah that supports this network. That's all helpful, absolutely. But no, they really actually work. I take them myself and I feel like, okay, I can handle whatever thing is going to come at me because I have a shield around me with what I'm doing for myself by adding these products into my regimen.
Yeah. Just this maybe, I don't know if Dr. Vigorous told you or not, but we're going to be doing, did you see that Facebook Live thing?
Yeah, this is
No,
awesome.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh,
how did I not know this? Tell me.
I know. Haha.
Sorry. Yeah. So we're going to be doing a Facebook Live with your co-host at Time, Dr. Dave Vigorous, on Thursday on my Facebook page. And we're going to be we're going to get really deep into the COVID-19, the origins, how it started, why it's spreading so quick.
Send me the invite, dude. Send me the invite. I'll have Regina, the most amazing assistant I've ever had in my entire life, Regina Santours, which we call Regina Saint Hours, because that's how her name is actually spelled. That's what I call her, Regina St. Hours. Please send it to me and I'll put it out everywhere. That is freaking amazing.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. Well, we know what we're going to do is we're really going to dig into this. And it's like, no, obviously Dr. Vigorous is, I mean, huge depth of knowledge. I mean, 5 years at St. Jude Hospital studying influenza. I mean, it's just crazy how much information that he has, but the history. And so it's like really the info that nobody's really talking about, because most of the information is either it's recycled or there's some sort of restrictions or censorship.
Right.
People don't want to worry about the CDC. It's he's just going to blow it out, be like, listen, guys, this is what it is.
Yes.
This is what's happening, you know?
Good. I love Dr. Vigorous. I like saying things like the network geneticist, the network infectious disease specialist.
Yeah.
I don't know if he likes that, but you know, cool I like saying that.
Virologist, right? Virusologist or something like that. I was like, that is
I know.
You're one of those. You're awesome.
And he's the most humble, caring human being ever. So that on top of it is amazing. He's going to listen to this and be like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. But you know, well, thank you to the two of you for coming on and doing this impromptu show. I have no idea what I'll title it, but I will figure it out. And we're just leaving positive droplets of energy out there in as many places as we can.
Yes.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another episode of Mental Health News Radio.
Hi, listeners. I'll make it quick. These are some really cool places that give discounts and other cool things for listeners of Mental Health News Radio Network. If you want to get amazing help with healing from narcissistic abuse, go to healfromanarcissist.com. If you want CBD products that are the best of the best, I use them myself, go to proze.com and use the code mentalhealth20, mentalhealth20. If you want to get daily perk ups that help retrain your brain to think more positively, go to perkupdaily.com. And also, just because this one's fun, snarkycandles.com. I guarantee you'll love them. Snarky with a Y, SNARKY, candles.com. And don't forget, if you want to hear all the shows on the network about first responders, you can go to firstrespondermentalhealthnetwork.com, and all of our shows that focus on narcissistic abuse, narcissistabusehealingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and back to the show.
Sometimes I'm passive aggressive, but never without good intentions. I heat up and act on my emotions.
Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health News Radio. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and hundreds of other podcast apps, or you can visit our website at mentalhealthnewsradio.com. If you have a question or would like to be a guest, become a podcaster on our network, or join the amazing organizations that help keep us on the air, please email us at info@mhnrnetwork.com. Get ready for that special goodbye from our resident therapy dog, Miles, and a special thanks to Emily Sohn for letting us use her incredible song, Cordial, for our podcast music. Listen to the full song on SoundCloud at emily.sonne.
Don't be surprised when I don't hate on you. After all, we promised we'd be cordial.